Now. Thank you, Anagha, for joining me. Nice Sunday morning, yet earlier so thank you so much, and I'm really excited about this webinar today. Um, uh, so many questions. So we rolled out this mail last week to get some questions from students on what they actually want to know and learn about this webinar, and I got a lot of questions where people were lot more inquisitive about how Oxford is, and there are so many other questions that they have in their mind. So what I'm going to do is it's going to be more like an interactive session, but it's more like a question answer where I'm going to be the representative of every MBA aspirant who's applying this year, and I want to learn, and we want to learn more about your journey and. Get an understanding of what it takes to get into a global MBA program, right? So with that, let me just introduce myself. I'm Shrikala. I'm one of the co-founders of CrackVerbal. I've been in this industry for over more than 15 years now. Prior to CrackVerbal, my earlier life, I would talk about as an entrepreneur. Before I became an entrepreneur, was in the IT industry. I worked for HP. But the last 15 years has been, a completely different journey for me. So we've moved from 30 students to, almost serving 30,000 students over so many years, help students getting into top schools across the world. And I've always focused on, making sure that from GMAT to MBA applications, how do we kind of craft the entire journey for anyone who's applying to these top schools, right? So that's pretty much a background about me. Anagha, maybe you can just uh, give a background about yourself and tell us a little bit about what has been your journey so far.
So far, I mean, how to start? I don't know. It's been so much this past 1 year. Background wise, I did my BBA in Environment Management and International Business from Symbiosis in Pune. And then I jumped straight into the family business where I was helping them out a little bit. And then COVID hit, during which I also started my own venture, which was in environmental and pollution testing. And I was knee deep in it, and it was a great experience being an entrepreneur. But then I realized that I sort of jumped into it too quickly, and somewhere or the other, there's a lot more to learn, especially in a field like sustainability or impact, where India is still falling behind a lot. So I decided that I'm gonna try and apply for an MBA, preferably in Europe, which is the center of innovation, and their focus on impact and sustainability is definitely truly unmatched. So decided to do that, enrolled for GMAT coaching with CrackVerbal, um, got a good score, and then had their services backing me up, and yeah, made it to Oxford. And the past year, it's been great. The MBA has been
Right.
experience, and here I
Right.
am.
Awesome. Awesome. And this is what I enjoy the most, right? Which is, it's almost been a journey of 2 years, technically speaking, with us.
Yeah.
But it is so much fun to talk to, you and getting an idea on what has changed in your life after, MBA or pre-MBA, right? So, okay. So before we get started, let me, this is going to be, like I said, it's going to be a Q&A. And what I want to know more is the whole thought process. I remember first time when we spoke, you spoke about your whole family business thing and how you were focusing on this is something related to uh, plastic or something related to packaging or something like that. I remember
Pollution.
that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Pollution, right, right. So, and I remember the first thought process was that even thinking around what will be your narrative,
Mm.
right? So, in terms of what you want to think on why you want to apply for an MBA, right? How has that crafted in your head right now, right? From a family business to
Yeah.
doing an MBA,
Yeah.
how has that narrative changed for you? From the time you started thinking about it to now, and how have you thought about it? Maybe you can just throw some light on that.
I feel like when I decided to do an MBA, it was I feel like the path that I had in mind and the path that CrackVerbal had in mind were different, but the destination was the same. So I feel like I had this whole idea that I should do an MBA. I should, for me to become a business leader, better with skills, with handling, with management, all of it. But I think it was really helpful getting that support from CrackVerbal, that these are the advantages you have. These are where you are lacking, like, and sort of, holding me up and putting me in that journey. I feel like definitely narrative wise, it's a very important thing to have the right narrative, because that's the most important thing that they want to know about you as a candidate as well, what you are doing and why you are doing it and what's the logic behind it, rather than just they don't want the highest scoring GMAT people or the people who've I don't know, top scorers, rank holders in the undergraduate. They're definitely looking for people who truly want to have an impact, that truly the narrative is the most important bit, I think. And I think once that narrative was created for me in the right way, with all the support, it was really easy to put my story across. Because if I was very fragmented in the things that, yeah, I am this, I am this, I am this, I feel like having the right narrative made it really easy to put myself forward as the best candidate for that place at
Right.
Oxford.
Right, right. In fact, I have these discussions with every time. So what happens is when we are looking at the whole application process as a whole, right? So this is for people who have not started your application process yet. The way it works is uh, after you take, in most cases, what happens is most of the people. So before that, let me just take, how many of you have kind of taken your GMAT or are in the process of taking your GMAT? If you could just type on the chat window, tell me how many of you have taken your GMAT, say yes. And if you've not taken your GMAT, say no. If you could just put on the chat window, okay, Sachin, no, Disha, no, Raj, yes, okay, Harish, in the process, okay, who else? Others, type in on the chat window. Okay, in the process. All right. So perfect. So one thing that happens is, and I think I'm glad that all of you are attending this session because this also will give you a very good idea on what is required when you're looking at doing an MBA, right? GMAT is just one part of the process, and it will be very important for you to think through what you want to do next. And that's where the whole thinking about what you want to pitch yourself, because your MBA applications is your pitch to the B school, and thinking through that pitch becomes extremely important for you when you're planning this entire journey, right? So coming back to you, Anagha, um, you had around 2 years, 2.5 years experience by the time you
By the time I'm
joined,
applying.
you were
Yeah.
applying, right? So was that a consideration? Like, were you worried about the fact that you were slightly lesser in terms of experience when you're applying to top schools? You are looking at the statistics on these websites, and these websites say 4 years, 5 years, 6 years experience as an average. Was that a concern for you? How did you kind of look at it more from an approach perspective for yourself, right? Because there is a lot of skepticism that also gets in when you're actually starting with this whole journey. So what was it? How did you deal with that, and how did you think when you're planning this?
There was definitely a lot of concern, because I think it would have been a lot more easier applying for a master's program, but I was very hell bent on doing an MBA. And I remember bringing this up in our calls or with the calls with my mentor multiple times, that what if I don't get in, and I lack this experience. And I mean, I did go, I mean, in the MBA, when I went, I was the youngest person in the MBA at Oxford. So it was definitely a major factor. I won't say wasn't important, because that is something they look at objectively. But I also realized through my experience that there's a lot more to it than just the number of years. That is, I mean, if, for example, as an entrepreneur, the experience that I've had on field definitely adds up to a lot more than a corporate role, maybe, 3, 5 years into the role. So I think it's very important to be aware that what is your shortcoming, or what can be the pros and cons in your application. But looking at it from an MBA application perspective, definitely, I think I've gone from a total pessimist to an optimist? I get this question a lot on my LinkedIn as well. Whoever sends me messages, they ask me, I see that we have similar years of experience. Did that deter you? What do you have to say about it? Is it a good idea to do an MBA? I would say that if you are sure that you want to do an MBA, you should definitely go for it. That would be my
Right. Right. And I remember last time we spoke, you spoke about having this whole, thing that will I be able to survive there?
take.
And I think this also comes from the factor that you knew that you were someone who's going in with slightly lesser experience compared to the rest. How did you overcome that? And what was that change in your journey that made you feel that, hey, I'm here because I'm one of the best, right? Or I'm as competitive as these guys who are already there in the class, right? So how did you manage that aspect more from your own journey perspective?
I think imposter syndrome, like I said in our previous call, is definitely very, very real. And going into the program, I mean, initially after getting my admit, I was the happiest, the most excited. But as I started sinking into it and coming closer to the date of leaving, I did start getting a little insecure about that. But then after going there, I think what I sort of realized was that everyone's coming from such different, diverse backgrounds, and maybe, for example, if operations is my forte, someone else is really good at consulting, or someone else is really good at investment banking. So, and a lot of the people who come to the MBA are looking to switch or are looking to pivot to new careers. So, there's definitely that everyone is coming with a fresh slate and starting anew over there in the program itself. So, and there's a lot of support system that is given by the B School as well. There are different clubs, OBNs, events, speaker events. So there's a lot that the school is offering to you as well, where you overcome. And if you are sure of a direction that is very different to what you did previously, you are all coming to a, how do I put it? Uh,
Even
yeah, and
ground.
even ground, yes. Even with all the years of experience for someone who's only been in tech and wants to maybe switch to impact, you are all starting anew. Or if you are continuing in the same industry, it's a different factor. But I think about 80% of the people want to switch, want to pivot to new fields, which is part of the reason why highly experienced people come to the MBA as well, which is very contrasting to the Indian scenario. So
Mm.
it, and as you get into the program, you get comfortable. The age it just gets blurred, and you're friends with people who are 40 years old, people who are 30 years old, 25 years old. The age is not a barrier anymore. So you all just get even, and yeah, you ease into it. I would say you naturally, yeah, you organically ease into it.
Right. Another thing that I wanted to talk about is every B school webinar that you attend, they all talk about having this whole growth mindset,
Yeah.
right? What I want to know from you is, obviously growth mindset is important, right? And that's what makes you curious. That's what makes you adaptable. That's what makes you learn a lot more. Um, where do you see that in people, or even from your own perspective, or when you're going through this whole journey, right? You might look at different people having different kind of challenges when they are looking at an MBA.
Yeah.
Where is this growth mindset or becomes extremely important for you to kind of focus on during an MBA?
During an MBA, growth mindset wise, I think learning obviously is part of it, but learning, I mean, it's definitely easier to have a growth mindset when you have um, a sort of guiding light, a North Star. It's easier to imbibe more knowledge and grow in that direction a bit more, because it's very easy to get sucked into the MBA, where it's like there's 1,000 events about 1,000 things happening and you want to attend every single one of it. And in the end, you just get burnt out. So I think it's very important to keep that in mind, that okay, if this is what I want, I understand it's completely, I mean, I was there, it's very difficult to pick and choose in the beginning itself, and it's so exciting. But I think giving it some thought before, and I mean, we have given it some thought before entering the MBA itself, before applying to the MBA itself. So maybe sticking to it and maybe seeking out activities and things uh, that align with it a little bit more. Because growth mindset is great, but you have to also follow your instinct a little bit more. And it's very easy to get sucked into that where you are attending events 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. and then you're just burnt out and you don't have energy for the next week. Yeah.
Right, right. I remember this from one of my ISB interviews where somebody told me that MBA has three things, right? So you can't have all. So it is sleep, it is academics, and it is activities. So you say, she said that if you want to have sleep, then you cannot have academic and activities. If you want academics, then you cannot have sleep and activities. So it's like you have to sacrifice one of it, and in most cases it's always sleep that is sacrificed because you
Definitely.
always want to make the most of your MBA
I
when you're looking.
totally echo with that because I think this past 1 year, I don't think I've had 8 hours of sleep every night. I think that's the first thing I did when I flew back home. That 1 week I just got undisturbed, continuous sleep to make up for the past year. She's a very wise person. This is definitely
Right. So, one more question I had is, all these B schools are talking about the number of activities and electives and things that are thrown at you. Now, obviously, when you're looking at a class that is so diverse, everybody comes with different kind of strengths and different kind of interests. Um, so before you got into Oxford, or while did you get, so is there a formula to it that okay, these are the kind of activities that you want to do if you want to get into consulting? These are the kind of activities that you should focus on if you want to get into, say, operations. These are the kind of activities that you should do when you want to get into product management, or should it be like an open to explore option when you start the program? Like, what is your thought? And if you have to advise this to any of these people who might be applying to Oxford this year, what would your advice be in terms of how they should kind of approach a B school journey?
In my opinion, definitely. I mean, both are very important and very good ways of looking at things. But in my own personal opinion, I think the beginning of the MBA, maybe the first term, it's all right to stay open to things because you come in with a fresh mind as well. So it's you have the bandwidth to do that, and it's very important to explore things because you think you like something, but you might end up liking something more during your MBA and it would be robbing you of your experience of your future if you don't uh, I mean keep an open mind at all. Like I said, it's very important to prioritize, but definitely I would say try to keep an open mind and listen to people. Try to just keep, it's like being a sponge and trying to get in as much as you can. But I think by
Right.
the end of that term, definitely it's better to stick to one or two things or maximum three at most, so that it's in a way it's like the school applications, the B school applications, because uh, you can choose schools across all geographies, but it's better to always concentrate on one or have schools that are based on some function. There is some filter to it. So it's better to have that one thing, but a little later into it, so that even if maybe initially you were thinking of consulting, you know what your second and third preferences are in case it's not working out, for example. You have something to
Right.
fall on. Yeah.
Right. Makes sense. Makes sense. Okay. So the other question that I got was, if you look at UK schools specifically, most of these schools have over 90% of diversity, right? Compared to even US schools for that matter. US schools, if you look at the number, it will say 26 to 30% and things like that in terms of the number of international candidates. But
Mhm.
UK schools, you have 63 nationalities in Oxford, and it says 90 plus percentage. It ranges from 95 to sometimes even 98% in terms of the diversity of the class.
Yeah.
Apart from the nationalities part, like nationalities is one part of the diversity. How diverse is when they say 98% of diversity, like what do they actually mean by that?
I think maybe on the website it typically means either, I mean, the nationality wise, majorly means the nationality wise, I think. But I think they also mean maybe the gender or the job functions. Because one thing I saw at Oxford was there was a huge range. There were people who were in investment banking to there were actresses or there were bloggers, there's consultants, there's the entrepreneurs. You've got the entire mix. So definitely, I would say that maybe that's what they mean by diversity in general. But yeah, I mean, nationalities wise, definitely there were 63 different nationalities in our cohort. For example, I think the Brits itself, the UK citizens, were probably three or four students.
Oh.
The rest 30 people were from other countries. So it's definitely not giving you the UK perspective in depth. In fact, Indians were the biggest majority this year in the
Mm.
cohort. Last year, I think it was the Chinese. So there is a lot to learn. I mean, each and as global business candidates, this is something you want to imbibe and take away. You want friends across the world. If you have a question about maybe solar cells in China, you can call up a Chinese friend and ask her, do you know someone? Or if there's someone in that industry, it's definitely a great takeaway to have that. And diversity is very good in the class as well. When we have case studies, for example, it's like there's so many different perspectives because something that makes sense to one country's people does not make sense to the other nation. So it's really exciting like that.
Right. So how does your day look like? Just tell me, how does your day look like? How does your week look like? What are the things that are added to, a schedule in a typical Oxford MBA?
Um, I mean, how does it look like? So if I give you a peek into my first term, it was most one second. I'll just if I give you a sneak peek into my first term, for example, I think Monday to Thursday we used to have classes, and those were really intense. It would start at 9 a.m., go on till 5 p.m. And then I'd also enrolled for this extracurricular, which was the finance lab. So it was about finance cases and financial modeling and things like that. So that would go on till 9. So first term, definitely after that, all of us are so exhausted. We just want to head out, maybe unwind a little bit, and then get back, get some sleep, and come back to class the next day again. But what I used to do during those times were during these weekdays, I used to try to reach out to people on LinkedIn and try to arrange calls for Friday. Because Friday, mostly we would only have career events and there would be no official class that day. So it was better to get in touch and get to know more about careers. So that was typically how I approached the MBA week. Weekends, I would try to. I mean, it's like you try to network. You're meeting up with people, and if you are lucky enough, you get some time to yourself. So that was definitely it was very intense. Definitely the whole program, but
Mm.
it did get easier as the year progressed because second, third term onwards it was elective, so you have more free time during the day. That time you're free to explore Oxford in general, go to the libraries, do your work, walk around. There's a lot to do. So it was, yeah, it was. I tried not to stick to a very rigid schedule as such because everything was so unpredictable. There would be some event happening here or there. It would just pop out. So it's important to have a basic structure and maybe keep a checklist of things to do. But I try not to be too rigid.
Right. My next question to you is, since Oxford is a huge university, right? And do you get to take, so one part is you have a set of core courses that you need to do, and then there is one part which is a set of electives that you need to focus on, right? Do you get to take electives from any other colleges or any other part which is part of the Oxford umbrella, or how does that work?
No, I mean the electives are strictly in the business school. Most of it is business based, except for I think one or two courses. We had this course called Business of Arts, which was a very interactive, practical course. So they would one class would happen at one of the libraries, or another one would happen at a college chapel, another one at a museum. That was something that was an out of class experience. But I mean, the electives are very different, and you get everything from everywhere. There's AI, there's strategy, there's impact. You've got a range of electives to pick from, but most of it happens at the B school. But they do arrange an opportunity for you to sort of interact with the others because university. For example, there was a series about war, global war, and that was something as someone who's interested in politics, I was really into. So I would try to make time to attend that every Tuesday, which would happen at the All Souls College. Or there was once this AI conference that was held, that was happening in the computer wing. It was in a different part of Oxford. So there's always something or the other happening. And if you check out the university's page, there's events happening, lots of chance to interact. Also, we have these formal dinners, which happen at all the colleges, which are like houses for us. So, like the school houses, we have a system called college system, collegiate system. So we could go for formals there, meet people from medicine or law or philosophy, and there you have a lot of chance for dialogue and interaction. But I think the electives clearly stick to most of the business courses itself.
Right, right. So, now very interesting question that is going, that I want to ask you. Cambridge is known as a place for startups, and they say that if you look at a lot of startups and a lot of these events that are happening, mostly these are the ones that are happening at Cambridge, right? And most people who apply to Oxford also have Cambridge as one of their options. Most people, right? And at least in my experience, most people. What is the difference in the vibe between these two schools, right? Like, since you've been there, right? And nothing like good or bad or anything, but what is the major difference in the vibe of these two different schools? Like, if I have to choose a school, because if I have got an admit to both these schools, what
Yeah.
should be my parameters to choose either Oxford versus Cambridge, right? What is the main difference? Is Oxford a slightly more young applicant friendly school? Is Cambridge a slightly more, older applicant friendly school? What is the vibe? Maybe you could throw some light on that.
Yeah. I think from my experience, I think even though I wanted to target both, I was advised not to, because I think Oxford is a young applicant friendly school in general, much more than Cambridge. And also, I think Cambridge is a bit more traditional. Somehow, even though Oxford's also like more than 1,000 years old, they are very uh, I don't know, very ready to learn, very ready to do new things. So it's that was something that was very attractive to me as well, because anything you want to do, from a tailors of society to anything, the university will give you full support. So all crazy ideas are encouraged, and I think definitely in matter of flexibility, I had a few friends in Cambridge. When I would talk to them, they had a lot of issues with attendance. I think they had a 75% attendance compulsory policy, whereas in Oxford it was like it's up to you. We understand you want to look for jobs, you have other priorities. We understand if you don't come to class, there wouldn't be anything except for a few classes like negotiation or something that you sign up for where 100% attendance is necessary. Apart from that, in general, it's a bit more flexible. Also, everyone is very approachable, is something that I learned. Even people who went to Cambridge, they were like, it's more rigid in structure. Here, if we needed anything, we would shoot an email to the MBA admin or approach them at the reception, and they would directly connect you to whoever you need to talk to. Um, so I think apart from the applicant, uh, the young applicant friendly nature, there's also a lot more, I don't know, support for innovation. I think there were activities like Creative Destruction Lab, which gave you access to working with really cutting edge very new kind of startups across climate, AI, very, you won't even think that these technologies exist and these are happening right there. Um, there's also, um, how do I put it? I don't know. I've heard this that I had a friend who visited both for applying to the next year's cohort, and he said that Cambridge was very uh, serious in a way, whereas Oxford very friendly and very accommodating in general. Is this what I heard? I didn't get a chance to go to Cambridge this year. I should have, in retrospect, maybe tried to go there, but this is
Yeah.
what I've heard about it.
Interesting, interesting. In fact, I was watching a documentary, and I saw this. I don't know for which course, but it said that Malala Yousafzai actually takes the people who show interest in Oxford for an Oxford tour. So
Yeah.
she takes them for an Oxford tour. So it was like, wow.
I fortunately got a chance to do that a lot too.
Yeah,
And I think everyone who came definitely loved it there because there's so much to do and it's so calm and happening and happy at the same time. It's definitely a beautiful place. If I was there, I would have loved to take whoever's coming because it's definitely I have a 1 day itinerary that is set for people who come and then I take them around and they absolutely love it.
right, right. So next question, when does the whole job search start? Like for internships, because in US, the whole job thing also is dependent on internships.
Mhm.
Unless if you don't get internships in US, there is no chance that you'll get a job. I
Mhm.
mean, because it has an H1 and all that is kind of, there is a process around that. Whereas in UK, it's slightly different, right? It need not be the same focus. How does this whole career services team help? And typically, when do candidates actually start thinking about internships or what kind of roles to pick? What is the process that they look at, and what are the resources that are available at Oxford that they can avail?
Mm, I think if because it's a 1 year program, it's like the sooner you jump into it, the better, because in the blink of an eye, your MBA starts and it's over. So if you know what you want to do, the earlier you start, the better it is. Most of the internships happen during the summer. I think April, May onwards. It slowly starts, but most of it happens June, July, August is when most of the internships happen. And when it comes to support, um, there is a lot of resources. We had a careers team guiding us. There was career guidance with CV evaluation, with networking. If you have a particular firm in mind, then they'll connect you to the right people. Or if there was also an online portal which was called Oscar for us. So they would post the latest postings, the listings on it, and then we could just directly apply through the portal itself. So there were a lot of opportunities definitely for internships, but most of it happens in London. And when it comes to job search, it really varies. I remember starting in September and then October, we had our first application to submit for I think strategy, and that was the first application I filled because for consulting, it's like before your course is over, literally when you start, 1 year before you have to start with your applications. Most of those hirings, the shortlisting, the rounds happen across December, Jan. There is a list put out in Jan and Feb. Whereas for like other roles, maybe in fintech or something else in tech, it's more recent. It's towards the end of the year. So there's a lot, and then you also have to keep an eye out. I mean, for the recent positions, if there are any immediate openings across LinkedIn, Indeed. So definitely job search is something, I think that was the stressful part of the MBA, that
Hmm.
along with this 1 year program, you also have to sort of jump into it and you have
Right.
to do both, try to manage both.
Right. In fact, I remember I was talking to somebody from one of the USB schools. He was from Tuck, and he said sometimes what also happens is because of this stress of looking for a job, you miss out on the joy of the MBA.
Yeah.
That is something that is important, that we have to keep in mind when we are looking at doing that MBA, because there's so much to get out of it when you're actually landing there. Right? What I want to ask you next is, more around the whole factor that when you're looking at Oxford as a school, right? They talk about career tracks a lot. LBS also talks a lot about career tracks. Uh,
Mhm.
what what are these tracks? Like, what do you do in these tracks? Who arranges these tracks? You also get to visit a lot of countries when you're looking at these tracks. So, what are these, and who do you interact with? Can you give us a little bit more information about these tracks?
Yeah, career tracks, I mean, either they're organized by the school or it can also be student organized. So I remember doing the Amsterdam Berlin career track in April, and that was a student organized one. So what typically happens is, as a school, I mean, as a school representative, you reach out to companies over there or different industries over there, and you're getting a chance to interact with them and maybe with other alum who are part of that organization. I wouldn't say that job, but definitely you, if you are exploring a certain industry, it's good. I mean, in a way that you get to see firsthand what's happening. You get to speak to people about how they are doing, what they are doing, and it's a lot of fun as well. I mean, along with the classmates. So there are a lot of treks that are organized. Most of them across Europe. I think there was a Japan trek that was organized. There was an Africa trek that was organized. So it's really fun. You get to know the region. You visit companies. You talk to people. It is. I think it's a really good first-hand experience for sort of exploring things. But I wouldn't say, maybe some connections you made. Maybe later on, these are the people who will be your employers. You never know, but there's always that factor of everything you're seeing on the laptop or reading online versus you going there, seeing things on your own and talking to people firsthand. Yeah, I think most of the treks are like that. If it's school organized as well, it's very similar. But during
Right.
our, I don't think we had any school organized. We had a school organized trek to Africa. That was also, I heard great things about it. And then we had we have this thing called the MBATs, which is MBA tournament, which happens in HEC Paris every year. So that is somewhere where all the European B schools come together to compete for. It's sort of like an MBA Olympics. So that's also a great opportunity to sort of interact and network. Yeah, I think these are great opportunities to network and, sort of confirm for yourself what you want to do about particular geographies or industries.
Right, right. Um, One question, because you understand, the different kind of people who have been in your class also. How difficult is it to switch industries? Especially from a 1 year program. To have, what is your thoughts? Because you have kind of witnessed it in your class, right? Is it easy, difficult? What do you think?
I think it's fairly difficult. I mean, I have seen this that they call it the pivoting. I think there are degrees to it. So if it's the same industry, different role, or different role, different industry, different role, different geography. So there's like, it depends on that. If you are working in the same kind of industry and maybe just switching from maybe a tech role to maybe a management position, maybe that's an easier transition. But
Hmm.
if you're looking at moving from being a techie in India in IT services to UK consulting, it's a completely different switch. So I think it really depends on how much you are switching. I won't say it's impossible. I have seen people do it, but it is hard to convince them the skills when there's already so much talent available to them from the same industry background. So what I saw that really helped people was um, definitely networking, reaching out to people a lot. Because once you have a good relation with them, maybe a mentor-mentee relation with them, you have someone referring you, or even if you're not uh, maybe applying to that company, maybe when they get to know of other opportunities, they're letting you know. So it all comes down to building a great network for it, and also maybe learning skills. And there's also a lot of support that's given from the B school. For example, if I am not great at coding and the role I want to get into requires coding, um, they are very, very willing to, give you access to courses or pay for your courses that will help you learn those skills and develop those skills.
Right.
So I
Right.
won't say it's impossible, but the more you're trying to pivot, it gets more and more difficult.
Right. So overall, more from an MBA experience perspective, right? Can you talk about, any of some really excellent professors, any anecdote that you remember, or anything that is more like a takeaway for you from your MBA? Any celebrities professor, in Oxford, like anything like that. If you could just tell us a little bit about that.
Um, I think one of this is very outside academics. I'll come to academics, but I think one of the best things that happens to the MBAs is that you get an Oxford Union membership. So, an Oxford Union is basically a debating society, which is run by students but has guests from everyone, from all the A-listers in Hollywood to prime ministers and presidents, and really, really important people whom you don't dream of meeting in your life. And you get a chance to hear them talk, and for them to share their ideas and thoughts, and you just get the opportunity to be right there and be spellbound by it. So I think that is something. And the best part about it is that it's a lifetime membership. So whenever when you know who's a speaker, for example, we had Tom Hanks last year. So if you know there's someone whom you're interested in, you can just go for the session, walk in. So that was definitely one very great experience. Um, Another, I think, academics wise, for me, my favorite course was negotiations. It was run by Professor Avin Tabishar, and what it entailed was sort of you get it's like you get your own case which you have to read and come, and it contains confidential instructions, every party, and you are paired up with someone to negotiate in class. There's an intro, I think, of half an hour or something, and then he sends you out to negotiate, and you've got to fulfill your objectives and see how well you do, because something that's good for me as a deal wouldn't be good for the other person. So you'll practically learn how to negotiate and the art of negotiation itself. So that was a really fun class. And you come back and you get feedback and all of that. That was a really exciting class. Um, Another one was AI. There was an analytics course. So I came from a very non-tech background, but going into the MBA, and I never imagined myself being interested in AI or anything technical like that. But I was so amazed by it, and so I don't know, into it, that I ended up picking all AI. So that was definitely a very important learning for me. That's something that you thought you might not be good at, you may actually turn out to be great at. So yeah, definitely. Those were my two definitely favorite courses in the MBA.
So, so thank you so much, Anagha. I think this was extremely, extremely informational. Any of you, if you have any questions, please feel free to type on the chat window. So I have one question which says 1 year versus 2 year MBA. I think when you're looking at a 1 year versus 2 year MBA, your decision should be more around number one, obviously, how much budget you have, because a 2 year MBA is a slightly more expensive option than a 1 year MBA. 2 year MBA will have a lot more internship opportunities. So if you're slightly lower on the experience level, maybe a 2 year MBA could be a good option. And 1 year MBA is obviously a lot more compressed and a lot more strenuous, like Anagha already mentioned, right? So I think that is something that that is there in terms of what is the major difference between a 1 year MBA and a 2 year MBA. Your thoughts, Anagha? Anything? I mean, I'm not sure whether you have any. What do you think?
I think you put it really well. That's definitely budget, I don't know, the amount of stress that you are willing to take, the duress you're willing to go about. I think that's very important. Also, I think one other factor would be maybe job wise. If you are someone who's really, you really know what you want to get into, and you are doing an MBA to just get the degree, maybe an accelerated program like a 1 year MBA is best. But if you're really exploring and if you really want to try out different things, do different internships, figure it out, maybe a 2 year MBA is a better option.
Makes sense. So there is a question that says, did you apply to other schools in Europe? What made you specifically choose Oxford over other schools?
So I had a list of schools that I was supposed to apply to, and I also, I think, wrote essays for most of them. But then I think Oxford was the first school I applied to, and I applied to Warwick next. But I heard from Warwick before Oxford, and it was not positive. So I was really unsure about how I would fare in the Oxford uh, selection process. And Oxford, in a way, was already the top school for me, the best preference for me because of their focus on impact and things like that, and it being one of the best in the UK itself. And I was very focused language wise on the UK. I didn't want to go to a European country where I didn't know the language fully to communicate or to work in later on. So I was very sure that I wanted to apply only to English speaking countries. So once Oxford came in, and because Cambridge I was not applying to, and LBS they required a higher number of years in experience and a higher GMAT than what I had. So I did not apply to LBS either. So when Oxford came in, then I didn't go ahead and apply to others. I went ahead with Oxford itself.
I have another question here which says, do you have people in their 40s also in your class?
Yes,
Did
definitely.
you? Yeah, Indians? Because I think that would mean.
Most of the Indians, I think the oldest Indian would probably be 34 or 35. There's no one older than that because yeah, definitely. But I think the oldest people that I encountered were either Americans or people from Africa. Yeah, those were there were very few as it's like there are so there are few people who are the youngest, I mean 24 or 25. Um, and it's the same equal number. It's like a bell curve. Most of the others are concentrated in the middle of the range. So there's only a
Right,
few.
right, right. Any other question? Okay, what is the proportion of the class generally in terms of Indians? So that is another question.
This is not constant because every year there's a nationality that has the majority. But this year it was Indians out of 334 or 335 people, there were 70 Indians. So there was a very good 7-0, not 1-7. So there was a very good Indian concentration across classes. Um, and I think Indians in general are very active in the class. So it was really fun to see fellow Indians, and it was a great community to have in the course as well. Because when you're away from home, it's easy to miss home and sort of feel like you want to run away back to India. So it's good to have that grounding.
Right. Okay, so there's a question which says, what was your GMAT score and how many attempts did you have?
I
By the
had
way, there's no formula to this. But
There
yeah,
is no formula to this because I thought my initial thought process when I was preparing for GMAT was the highest score, the best school, the higher ranking school. This is something I realized there is no direct formula to this, and you don't know what they're looking for at all because there were people who had a 760 and got rejected at the Oxford MBA, whereas I met someone who had a 640 in the Oxford MBA. So I myself had two attempts. The first one, I went in and just gave it before preparing, and it was not a great score. Then I enrolled with CrackVerbal and did some coaching for my verbal. Uh, Quant I was fairly good at, so I got some coaching for verbal, and I think my score was 690.
Right. What is the job scenario now generally, and do you think it is the increasing role of AI that is impacting this, or it's generally the economy? What do you think is the reason of why there is a slump? By the way, this is some that is there everywhere in the world. Even India is facing it. So what do you think
Yeah,
is
it
the
is
main?
definitely not as bad as the UK or Western general. UK in general, I think it is the economy as of now. It's been bad for some years, but it's at its worst. But it's what I'm hearing right now because I'm in the applicant pool. It is getting better. There are a lot more openings coming up, and hopefully it should get better in the new year.
There's a question here. It says, is Oxford a good choice for entrepreneurship? Like, if I want to become an entrepreneur or if I have a business idea in my mind, what are the avenues that I can get at Oxford to kind of pursue something like that?
I would say it's one of the best, if not the best choice for entrepreneurship. There's a lot of support that you receive if you want to pursue entrepreneurship. One compulsory module that we had for us, which lasted, I think, a whole term, was we had this entrepreneurship project where you form groups of five and you come up with an idea and you're basically pitching it to investors. In the end you've got a mentor who's assigned to help you through everything with your story, with your financials, with industry exposure, everything. So that, I think, that is one um, opportunity that really, if you have an idea or if you want to work on an idea, you get some of the best minds to join hands with you and work on it. And if you are still keen on doing it after the project itself, during the summer term when people are interning or people are doing projects, you have a chance to sort of continue the same entrepreneurship project. Um, and there's a lot of support in terms of funding, in terms of mentorship that you receive from the school. Um, I know a group of people from my class who started an AI based analyzer for makeup, I think, for cosmetics based on your skin tone and your nationality on skincare products. And they did that during the entrepreneurship project just for fun. And then they ended up getting funding and doing it throughout the summer. They were coming into school, working on it like an actual job. And then they're still doing it. They've stayed back and they're working on it. So I
Right.
think there's also a lot of, there's entrepreneurship cell, there's a lot of the creative destruction lab. There's a lot of opportunities for funding as well. And there are competitions they promote to you for getting funding, things like that. So
Right.
entrepreneurship is definitely, they value it a lot. So it's given a
Right.
lot of respect in Oxford.
Perfect. Perfect. All right, so I think that's about it. That's the questions we had. Unless anyone has, you can just type in. But thank you so much, Anagha, for this session. This is extremely insightful. I hope it was insight for all you guys too. If you guys have not started thinking about applications and if you're applying to R2, now is the time. Please don't delay your whole process, because this requires you to think through and plan and pick the right kind of schools, write the right kind of essays and things like that. Okay, there's one more question, scholarships. What are the kind of scholarships that are available at Oxford? How do you look at that?
I think there's fairly a lot of scholarships that are available. There's the normal
Scholars.
Scholl is for social impact. For then you have which solely based on your application. There is no additional application. There are others. There's also, I think, I can't remember the names, but there's a lot of opportunities for
Yeah.
scholarships. And even if that's one tip that I would give, if you have scholarships from other schools, you could always leverage and reach out to them asking for scholarships. This is something I did not do, but I wish I had done. I got to know this later that you can just reach out to the school, let them know that this is your condition and you want scholarships and how essential it is for you.
Right.
And they are very considerate with it, especially the earlier you apply, the better. And this year, I think and the Saeed Foundation, they've put in more money for scholarships. The foundation scholarships have become bigger. They're awarding it to more people. So there is definitely a lot of scope for scholarships. But some of it require a lot of additional essays in addition to your 5, 6 essays on the application.
Right, right. In fact, we have had couple of people from CrackVerbal who got the scholarship because both of them were from a social entrepreneurship background. One of them is CEO of one EV mobility company right now. The
Wow.
other one actually is doing some kind of research at Oxford right now. Post her MBA. But yeah, interesting. So yeah, so there are a lot of scholarships. Go look at the Oxford website. You'll find a lot of those options and all the details around it. Whether you map that criteria or not is something that you can easily figure that out, right? All right, thank you so much. And if you have any questions or if you would want me to evaluate your profile, please feel free to book a slot on my calendar. I've just put my link of my calendar over here. Please feel free to book a slot so that we can have a one-on-one call if you've not already done that. But thank you so much, Anagha. This has been amazing. And thank you so much for all the insights and giving me 1 hour of your time on a Sunday. I think
No,
that's
not at
something
all.
that full of gratitude. Thank you so much and all the best for your next step. And we are just looking forward to see you doing great things in future.
Also, if anyone wants to reach out to me, definitely please do reach out on LinkedIn.
Yeah,
If
yeah.
I'm not immediately replying, I will definitely try to reply as soon as I can. Yeah, it's been a pleasure, ma'am. Thank you so much for
Thank you
having
so
me.
much, Anagha. Thank you so much. And thank you, Shantanu. Thank you, all of you. I hope it was useful for you too. Have a great Sunday. Thank you so much.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Take care. Bye.